The Pre-Reformation Views of Man. The Pre-Reformation views are views that were held before the Protestant Reformation, because the Protestant Reformation took place in the 16th century. Now, we will look at the views of man prior to the 16th century. Now, all modern views of man are adaptations, transformations, and modifications of two distinctive views of man, that being the classical view and the Christian view. In medieval times, during the time of the Roman ascendancy, these two views of man were merged into a kind of synthesis which Roman Catholics call Thomistic philosophy or Thomistic thought. They like to think it as Christian thought. Well, modern culture begins with the destruction of the synthesis in the Renaissance and the Reformation. Now, the classical view of man, what did the people of the classical age think of man? Well, they thought that man was to be understood chiefly from the standpoint of his rational faculties, that his mind, they thought that man's mind was immortal principle of man, and that it was largely a divine principle. Man then was a rational being, and because he possessed reason, he was immortal. Man's body is the material or the substance in which evil inheres. And therefore, to the ancient man, the body was sinful by definition, and the soul was immortal. The makeup of man's body was like a kind of prison. It was viewed as a sinful state, and his mind or his spirit was divine. But the two had to live together for a while, and while the ancients, particularly the Greeks who were affected by this Platonic thought or type of philosophy, were extremely anxious to reach a stage where the soul would no longer dwell within the prison or house of the body. Now, this is referenced throughout the New Testament. We can find this in 1 Corinthians chapter 15. Paul had contended with the speaking about the resurrection when he preached the gospel in Corinthians. And some said that the doctrine of the resurrection of the body was a bad thing because the body was evil. And they questioned why one would desire a resurrection of the body when what they were most interested in is having was the spiritual resurrection where the body did not take part. Now, you would see that consequently the apostle had to deal with the problem of the resurrection of the body. In doing so, pointing out that along the way that the body itself is not sinful. Rather, it is comprised within the plan and purpose of God, that the Christian doctrine is the resurrection of the body. Now, you will find that this error continues to be a modern error in our Christian churches today. Because of this, you will find people who supposedly in the evangelical churches speaking about the resurrection of Jesus Christ on Easter as if it is nothing more than the influence of our Lord. Now, these people speak about a spiritual resurrection. They do not like to speak about a bodily resurrection. Now, even today, it is very unpopular in a large segment of Christianity to speak about a bodily resurrection, which is just a carryover of Greek thought. Now, this body-mind dualism stands in great contrast with the biblical picture, the Bible. And the Bible knows nothing of a good mind and an evil body. The body itself is not evil. The body is interpreted within the plan of God as a result of the fall. Because of the fall, sin dwells within the body. However, this does not mean that the body itself is evil. Furthermore, it is also wrong to assume that the idea that the mind is good. The Bible makes it very clear that our minds are darkened as a result of sin. So this classical view of man also influenced us in other ways. Not only has it influenced us in our doctrine of the resurrection, but it's also communicated in itself to us, to the medieval church. Since we are in a sinful body, a part of the Christian life, and its struggle is to deny the body its pleasures, longings, lusts, and passions, therefore this form of asceticism arises. And where it's touch not, taste not, handle not, dragging this great deal into the evangelical communities by saying, thou shalt not, and this is referred to as a Christian taboo.